Canadian lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender (LGBT) rights are some of the most extensive in the world. Same-sex sexual activity was made lawful in Canada on June 27, 1969, when the Criminal Law Amendment Act, 1968-69, also known as Bill C-150, was brought into force upon royal assent. In a landmark decision in 1995, Egan v. Canada, the Supreme Court of Canada held that sexual orientation is constitutionally protected under the Equality Clause of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In 2005, Canada was the fourth country in the world, and the first in the Americas, to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide. Canada was referred to as the most gay-friendly country in the world when it was ranked first in the Gay Travel Index chart in 2021, and among the 5 safest in Forbes magazine in 2019. It was also ranked first, indicating least dangerous, in Asher and Lyric's LGBTQ+ Danger Index in 2023, and tied for first in the Equaldex Equality Index in 2023. The country's largest cities feature their own gay areas and communities, such as Toronto's Church and Wellesley neighbourhood, Montreal's Gay Village Commercial District, Vancouver's Davie Village, and Ottawa's Bank Street Gay Village. Every summer, Canada's LGBT community celebrates Gay Pride in all major cities, with many political figures from the federal, provincial, and municipal scenes. In recent decades, Canada went through some major legal shifts in support of LGBT rights, e.g. decriminalization, anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, gay marriage, homoparentality, blood donations, transgender rights, and outlawing of conversion therapies. The 2020 Pew research showed that 85% of Canada's general population, 92% among Canadians aged between 18 and 29, had favored social acceptance of homosexuality, up from 80% in 2013. Likewise, polls in June 2013 had shown an increase in the Canadian population's point of view, with a vast majority of Canadians to give their blessing to same-sex marriage, which was made available to all throughout Canada in 2005. The polls had also revealed that 70% of Canada's population had agreed that same-sex couples should have the same rights to adopt children as heterosexual couples do, and that 76% had also agreed that same-sex couples are just as likely as other parents to successfully raise children. By 2020, 91.8% of those surveyed in a poll commissioned by the Privy Council Office said they would be comfortable if a next-door neighbor was gay, lesbian, or bisexual, and that 87.6% said they would be comfortable if a neighbor was a transgender person. Transgender people and cross-dressing practices have been recorded and documented in Canada for centuries. Different Indigenous groups have had their own traditions and terms to refer to transgender people, gender variance, or sexual identity. These First Nations had perceptions towards gender and sexuality which differed significantly to that of the Western world. Many transgender people in these traditional roles were in positions of reverence, where they acted as caretakers of children who had lost their families, spiritual healers, and warriors in battle. The Cree term apuesquaishat refers to people who were assigned male at birth but act, dress, and behave as female, while the term esquiukanepwayat has the opposite meaning, that being a person assigned female at birth but acts and behaves as male. Similarly, the Kootenai-Titkatek describes women who take on roles traditionally characterized as masculine, including hunting and warfare. The Blackfoot term akiaskasi, meaning acts like a woman, also spelled aikakasi, describes men who dress as women and typically perform chores and activities associated with women, such as basket weaving and pottery making. Many other Indigenous groups recognize similar terms: the Inuit Sepinic, the Assiniboine Wikta, the Tlingit Gatsin, and the Tsimshian Konatias. Among the Ojibwe, male-to-female individuals are known as ikwakazo, which literally translates to men who chose to function as women, whereas female-to-male individuals are known as inanakazo. The European colonialists would describe such individuals as homosexuals, a curious compound of man and woman, or berdache, meaning a catamite or a male prostitute. The term is now considered offensive and outdated. Following colonization and the spread of Christianity by religious missionaries, many of these traditions began to die out. Transgender individuals were furthermore forced and assimilated into Europe-centric culture, and even among the Indigenous peoples perceptions began to change. In the early 1990s, Indigenous groups sought to reclaim many of their customs and traditions.
LGBT indigenous groups proposed the term Two-Spirit to refer to a traditional and cultural third gender.
In modern times, Two-Spirit is frequently used by First Nations groups to refer to people who embody these gender traits, and is occasionally used to reference the entire indigenous LGBT community. As such, the terms LGBT2S or LGBTQ2S are increasingly used, with the 2S denoting two-spirited people. Sometimes, this is denoted simply as two, as in LGBTQ2. Records of homosexuality and same-sex relations also exist, notably among the Mi'kmaq, where the common phrase Jinyamuja Salaji, which translates to he loves men, is used to refer to such individuals.
During the British North American era, sexual activity between men was a capital crime. However, there is no surviving record of any executions. Political figures were reluctant to enforce the law.
The death penalty was eventually repealed, though a broader law involving gross indecency between men was often enforced in the late 19th century. During the early to mid-20th century, the law often portrayed homosexual men as sex offenders, including the court case of Everett George Clippert.
He admitted to having sex with multiple men, which resulted in his life imprisonment.
Same-sex sexual activity between consenting adults was soon decriminalized in 1969 as a result of legislation introduced in 1967, with then Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada Pierre Trudeau, who eventually became the 15th Prime Minister of Canada and famously commented, "There's no place for the state in the bedrooms of the nation." Up until 1973, homosexuality was considered to be a mental illness.
Many treatments were used to cure people of their homosexual orientation, including electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and conversion therapies.
In 1973, the American Psychiatric Association decided that homosexuality is not a mental illness. As a result, homosexuality was withdrawn from the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, DSM, which is the diagnostic reference guide used by all health and social services professionals in North America. In 1999, the American Psychological Association acknowledged in its Code of Ethics that to treat homosexuality as a psychological problem, a sexual deviance, or a form of psychopathology is unethical. Same-sex marriage became legal in Ontario in 2003, and was already legalized in 8 of 10 provinces and 1 of 3 territories when, on July 20, 2005, Canada became the first country outside Europe and the 4th country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide after the enactment of the Federal Civil Marriage Act.
Likewise, same-sex adoption was legalized in all provinces and territories under varying rules.
Discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity or expression in employment, housing, and public and private accommodations is now prohibited by all provinces and territories, as well as the federal government. Transgender people are now allowed to change their legal gender in all provinces and territories under varying rules.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.